It appears opponents of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have succeeded in forming a coalition government that would remove him from office. Mr. Netanyahu is Israel's longest-serving prime minister, holding the office for the past 12 years. But Israel's parliament has been politically unstable in recent years, holding 4 elections since 2019. Right-wing leader Naftali Bennett and centrist Yair Lapid are leading the new coalition government. It's an alliance between 8 parties from across the political spectrum. On Twitter, Lapid said that the new government will work for all Israelis, but the coalition is a fragile one. For more, let's bring in Dan Raviv. Dan is a columnist for Newsday. He's also the author of Spies Against Armageddon, Inside Israel's Secret Wars. Dan, on paper, the parties involved in this coalition don't necessarily get along well with one another. How were they able to put aside their political differences and form this alliance, especially since we have seen others try and fail so many times before?
As you said, 4 rounds of elections in 2 years. That's unprecedented in this little democracy in the Middle East, Israel. But every time there was an election, there was no change, right? Netanyahu put together a new coalition just barely. His opponents couldn't do it. This time it was different. Netanyahu did, in fact, win more seats than anybody else. His party got more seats, so he had the first shot at trying to form a coalition, and he could not get a majority. You need 61 seats out of the 120 in the Knesset, Israel's parliament. So he couldn't quite get there. And so then the president of Israel, usually a figurehead role, did what he had to do. He let the second-place finisher have a shot at it. So, there's Netanyahu, and Netanyahu had to stand aside, and instead Yair Lapid had a chance of forming a government. And, well, his 30 days were going to expire tonight, Wednesday night. And pretty much at the last minute, with just half an hour to go, he managed to put together enough parties from the right and the left who have only one thing in common. They thought 12 years of Netanyahu as prime minister is enough, maybe more than enough. That's what they have in common, getting rid of Netanyahu. And it is enough. They apparently will have exactly 61 seats in the Knesset. The new Knesset would have a vote to see if they approve the new government. That's about 12 days away. If nothing falls apart, you'll have a new government. And Netanyahu will be the opposition leader rather than prime minister. And that's something new.
Yeah, Dan, it's very interesting. If the glue that holds this coalition together is really opposition to Netanyahu, what will happen when they actually come to governing? But even before that, as you mentioned, the new government isn't completely locked in yet because Israel's parliament still needs to hold a confidence vote. Do you feel like it is fairly certain that the coalition will stand between now and then? And then once it comes to actually governing, what do you see in their future?
Israel really has a raucous politics, and so you cannot be sure. What Netanyahu would want to do is persuade 1 or 2 or 3 members of the Knesset who are now in this new anti-Netanyahu coalition to come over to him, join his Likud party. He'll make them the minister of something or other, do a big favor for them. So it is still possible for Netanyahu, who's very wily, to survive. But as I say, there's a general sense in Israel that his time is up. You may recall he's on trial right now for fraud and bribery. He wanted to stay as prime minister to have a form of immunity against that. So personally, kind of desperate, and his desperation was showing. Keep in mind, by the way, the recent war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. A lot of people think that Netanyahu was pounding Gaza especially hard just to prove what a tough leader he is. And as you know, when it comes to Israel's image worldwide, Israel suffered a lot for that, and quite a few Israelis are aware of it.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how the conventional wisdom immediately following those attacks on Gaza have seemed to turn against Bibi. As you were mentioning, though, this change in leadership is monumental, given the amount of time that Netanyahu has been in power. What might this change in leadership actually mean for relations between Israel and the United States?
We have to remind the world that Israel has fewer than 10 million people. It's a really small country, and yet Netanyahu is one of the giants on the world stage because he's been prime minister for 12 years, because Israel's involved in so many interesting things. You know, the country that's committed to stop Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. And that's where we get to the most important issue right now between the United States and Israel. The U.S., meaning Joe Biden's administration, wants to go back into a nuclear accord with Iran to stop Iran from getting the bomb, but it means sanctions against Iran could be lifted if that happens. Israel is dead set against that. And with Netanyahu gone, you know, maybe this new coalition would be a little softer about that. In addition, we really know Joe Biden didn't care for Netanyahu. He felt that time and again, Netanyahu had insulted the U.S., had insulted the Obama-Biden administration. So I think here in Washington, the U.S. government will be kind of pleased if Netanyahu really is gone. And by the way, the U.S. is getting a briefing on this from the defense minister of Israel. Right now, Benny Gantz is flying here. The talks tomorrow are specifically about the Israelis wanting some more military aid to replenish some of their supplies after the Gaza war. But that means that the Biden administration's top officials can talk to Benny Gantz, who, by the way, is the head of one of the parties that will join the new coalition,
right,
and find out what's really going on. The U.S. is interested.
A very interesting point, too, about Gantz, because he had been previously one of those major opposition forces against Netanyahu. Dan Raviv, thank you so much.
Pleasure.